Friends, I'm going to ask you a $1 million question. Why it is $1 million? I'll tell you later. Can we conquer death? Few billionaire from Silicon Valley, they're trying to conquer death. All the best to them, but till late, we cannot. But definitely, we can bypass the sufferings, the agony in the process of death. Euthanasia, an emotionally charged word with lot of definitional and conceptual confusions among multiple stakeholders, physicians like me, lawmakers, common people, but it has taken a center stage in many medical forums, in many common platforms, in many intellectual discussion like here. Let me start with a real life experience as a geriatrician. It was July 2017, a Sunday morning. I was with my family. I was taking my inbox. I got a message from Honorable Prime Minister Office. Please transfer this patient under your care. He is Mr. Prabhat Kumar Jha, a renowned poet who was in his 90s, who was suffering from Alzheimer's dementia, a debilitating disease in late life. For last 5 years, he was also suffering from chronic obstructive airway disease, a problem of lungs, where patients suffer gradual increase in breathlessness. He was dependent for his daily chores for last 5 years. Recently he suffered from pneumonia, so he got admitted in a private hospital of South Delhi. But situation worsened. They put him on ventilator support. And when I received the mail, he was on ventilator for last 15 days. We shifted him. The very next day, his son, Dr. Amar, who was a practitioner in critical care medicine in Washington, D.C. for last 30 years, and his daughter, Sumitra, a noted musician from Delhi. They came to me in my clinic with their documents. After discussing about the prognosis of their father, Sumitra started the discussion. You know, Dr. Chatterjee, my father was my hero throughout my life. I didn't marry to take care of my parents. But honestly, I cannot see the sufferings of my father like this, who is lying helpless in the couch of ICU, isolated from all of us, multiple tubes in and out. My mother, who is 88 years old, frail lady, she is also suffering equally. Relieve his sufferings. Her brother, Dr. Amar, echoed the same. He told, you know, after staying in Washington, D.C. for last 30 years, where not only passive but active euthanasia is also allowed, we respect life a lot, but we also respect the process of death, which should be with minimum suffering, in peace, in dignity. So we would request you to withdraw the ventilator support. But the most important document which they produced to me was an autobiography by Mr. Pravat Kumar Jha. I turned the last few pages in the epilogue. He has mentioned, I lived a life like a king. I have no incomplete wish list. But I don't disown death too. My only prayer to Almighty that I should have minimal sufferings before I die. But as I mentioned, till that time, there was no law to support me. I was in ambivalence. And the scenario I am mentioning is increasing day by day. It has become a fairly common scenario because elderly population, especially the 80 plus, is the fastest growing population. They are changing the demographic pyramid. The emergency visit by elderly people, especially 80 plus, has increased 4 to 5 times globally. Most of the ICU, from your experience also, you can see more than 50% of ICU bed is occupied by 60 plus, 70 plus and 80 plus people. So as a geriatrician, a patient-centered, consent-venerating nature, when we ask our people, our elderly people, and also evidence suggests 3 concerns in late life bothers maximum. That is loss of autonomy, then decreased ability to perform life enjoyable activities, and third is loss of dignity. So let me ask you, the scenario I have discussed, don't you feel Mr. Pravat Kumar Jha, who has lost almost all these 3 parameters, whose family was in support of withdrawing ventilatory support, we should have done that. Our laws would safeguard us for that. And this can happen with anybody, with my family seniors, with your family seniors. But the scenario didn't change so fast. Aruna Shanbag. This case created a lot of triggering factor in media, in court. Again, a very pathetic story. A junior nurse working in Mumbai Government Medical College had been sexually assaulted by a ward boy and strangled. She suffered hypoxic injury in the brain, highest part, cerebral cortex. So, unfortunately, her vital organs were fine. So naturally, her colleague, empathetic colleague, they started feeding her. So see, what she needed was only nutrition and hydration. She was in that stage 37 years. Can you imagine? A lady who has lost her conceptual identity, who has only mere existence, no presence, who is living on the mercy of others like a child with a meaningless existence. A social activist and journalist, Pinky Virani, filed a petition in Supreme Court. And very rightly she mentioned, existence of Aruna Shanbag in this state is a violation of human dignity and life. Aruna didn't get justice. But Supreme Court, following this movement, in 9th March 2018 gave the landmark verdict. The 4 judges' benches unanimously decided that passive euthanasia should be permitted for a terminally ill patient like the example I gave, Mr. Pramad Kumar Jha, or somebody who is in permanent vegetative state like Aruna Shanbag. Supreme Court also gave a directive that is called Advance Health Directive or Living Will, which should be written in advance, and it should be written by all of us. You may be millennials, you may be very elderly, but you decide the future course of action. If something wrong happens, whether you should be supported with artificial support system, whether you should be supported with nutritional support or not. Supreme Court has given a very nice layered verdict to prevent the slippery slopes, to prevent the ill will of many family members, many relatives. So somebody who is writing the living will, he or she has to be in his sound body and mind. It has to be voluntarily. He or she should know the consequences. If required, he can change also in future. And that should be witnessed by 2 independent witnesses. It should be signed, followed by a documentation by jurisdictional judicial magistrate of first class from their nearest community. And the jurisdictional judicial magistrate will keep a offline and online document. So, in case of need, the situation which arises in my scenario, as I mentioned, a physician will not take a call alone. He will form a medical board headed by head of the department, of respective department, and multiple specialists from various disciplines who has at least 20 years experience in medical science. This medical board will give green signal certification. Then the local jurisdictional counselor will form another medical board which is outside that hospital, who are independent body. So they will also give the opinion whether he should go through this process, followed by the final verdict by the jurisdictional judicial magistrate of first class, who will visit the hospital, see the patient and take a call. So passive euthanasia, there are 2 forms. One is active, another is passive. As the name implies, active is an act of commission where physician or the person himself or herself will infuse lethal drug to smoothen the process of death. Another is passive. We are restricting ourselves now for passive euthanasia, which is an act of omission, withdrawing support system, which is very much within the legal framework of Constitution 21, which says the right to live with dignity. Even these judges' benches from Supreme Court, they have mentioned very clearly that Article 21 can be extended. That right to live with dignity also includes refuse to live without dignity. So passive euthanasia, I feel by this time all of us understood. It is not a myth, it is not a fashioning term, it is not a confusion. It is a medical act which is very much evidence-based, which is always in the best interest of the patient, which is the process of death with dignity. In a terminally ill or a vegetative patient for whom there is no chances of recovery, it is to protect the human right, that is autonomy. But friends, it is unfortunate, the awareness is minimal. I'm sharing another story. Mrs. Durga Devi, who was suffering from multiple disease, again an octogenarian. She had Parkinsonism, she had frailty, she had diabetes, she has hypertension, she has coronary artery disease, completely dependent for her daily chores. Got admitted with infection of urinary tract. Went to delirium followed by septicemia. Septicemia means that when the infection spreads from one organ to whole body. Her next of kin was her elder son. Her elder son was a noted social activist who works last 30 years for the upliftment of tribal population. So I sat with him after this verdict. I sat with him. I explained the procedure. I clearly mentioned him that spend some time with your mother because you were not there for last 30 years almost. Spend some time with your mother instead of putting her on ventilator support, which will be futile for her, which will not give her a dignified death. I try to stimulate his egalitarian view that we have only 4 ventilators in our department. If not your mother, I can give it for somebody who is salvageable. But I failed. I don't know why. It may be his guilt conscious. It may be societal pressure that son has not done 100% for his mother. But friends, we are living in a country where still we have so much of resource constraint. Thousands dies without primary care. Forget about getting a ventilator support. So once implemented and cleared by Parliament, I feel this would revolutionize the concept of medical practice, overall health system. It will help us in triaging salvageable patient, safeguard the doctor, the patient caregiver for a compassionate death with respect and proper protection. And so I request all of you that passive euthanasia should be a movement in this country. And all of us should write advanced health directives. After all, we prepare 10 months to come into this world. Why can't we prepare in advance for our final destination? Thank you.